Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the ASX and Sectors weekly chart analysis for the week ending 3rd of July 2026. The first chart is the S&P ASX 200 index. This is the parent index of the Australian Stock Exchange. The market closed higher this week after trading lower for the early part of the week and below the previous bar's close. Towards the end of the week, the market pushed higher. We've got the highs of the range come through here and the lows of the range down here. There's some intermediate levels through the middle here. You can see the market's pushed up above that intermediate level and it's attempting to absorb the supply in the market and remain above it, which leaves the market well placed to push higher if trading conditions remain favourable. This chart remains fairly messy compared to some of the others and perhaps a little more difficult to read. The mid-cap sector is a much clearer chart at this point. This is the mid-caps. The highs of the range come through there, breakdown line above, form a little zone where the resistance is. After finding some buying support down here, the market pushed up, established the highs of the range just below the breakdown line. The market went into a consolidation mode through here for a period. 3 weeks ago, the market pushed up and made a challenge to the breakdown line, remembering there is going to be some resistance drawn out when the market attempts to push up above that level. In response, the market came back to consolidate. You can see that volume reduced back to about the average. So selling pressure wasn't a serious concern there. Selling pressure eased as price came back. And in response, the market's pushed back up this week and just popped its head over that breakdown line again. The market's showing you some intent here. It would perhaps like to push higher, but it's going to have to absorb the supply from the left, from this congestion zone here. That may take a little time. You can either thrust higher and attempt to absorb that supply all in one go, or it can grind higher, sort of like this, which is a far easier way to do it, but it takes a longer time. And that's probably what's going to happen. It's going to attempt to grind higher in sort of a bullish absorption type trading and attempt to absorb the supply as it grinds up. This also allows the market to pull back when there's weakness on overseas markets or uncertainty when events occur overseas. The small ordinary sector, and it closed just slightly higher this week. You've got the breakdown line in the background through here, and the highs of the range right next to it there. This is the period of consolidation. You can see on the mid-caps. The market's just popped up a little higher this week after pulling back last week from the breakdown line. This was nowhere near as strong a move as in the mid-caps. This market remains a little unsettled or uncertain at this point in time. It's just waiting to see what's actually going to happen around the world. This is the ASX financial sector. Lows of the range come through here. The highs of that range there were there. Price pushed up. This is the highs of the overall range where supply was drawn out when challenged previously. And in response to those two challenges, the market moved into a period of consolidation in response. This bar formed when the Reserve Bank changed the target interest rate, and since then the market's been trading within the range of that bar. Originally in consolidation mode here, there was a little push higher, and the market's been attempting to establish itself and perhaps set up a little springboard to push higher. The market remains within the range of this bar and has done since it formed. And you can see the market's really come up to the lows of this bar here, this little period of consolidation. And it looks well placed to make an attempt to push higher when trading conditions allow. This is the ASX metals and mining subsector, and I expect that it would recover somewhat this week. It didn't recover quite as much as I thought it may have. I thought the market may have pushed right up to here and closed like that. But it didn't do that. There's been a modest response here. Highs of the range through here. You can see that the market's made several attempts to push higher here and failed each time. These are like absorption bars. Then the following bar neutralizes any weakness that has emerged from those bars. And this week the market has kind of attempted to do the same thing, but the recovery was muted and nowhere near as strong. And that may reflect some uncertainty in the market at this point in time, whereas the market really was making a serious attempt to set this up, absorb supply and push higher. Perhaps this market now is a little uncertain. It's just waiting to see what's going to happen before making any further serious commitments. We'll have to watch this one further. The ASX gold sector. Here's the lows of the range, which we've been looking at more recently. The market dipped below that level this week and below the previous bar's close before recovering and pushing higher towards the end of the week. And you've got a breakdown line through there. And that's pretty much where the market's moved to. This is an intermediate breakdown line. The breakdown line above goes through there. And this week's recovery suggests the market was defending the lows of the range, certainly aided by the fact that the gold price did also rise towards the end of the week as well. This is the ASX energy sector. This market did a half-hearted and quite weak recovery this week. You've got a breakdown line in the background here. You've got this period of consolidation in the background, which the market's attempting to consolidate adjacent to. The market pulled back to that level this week. There's been a very slight response higher. Really, it's a half-hearted response on low volume. There was no real intent being shown. And I expect the market probably will trade in this level in the near term. This is the ASX healthcare sector. It has been receiving a bid more recently. They continued again this week. You can see the increased volumes that have been going through more recently. Price pushed higher this week on average volume with an increased spread and quite a positive close. This was a lack of selling pressure in the market. The breakdown line above goes through there. The market's pushed right up to that level this week. Here was the breakdown bar in response, where the market pushed lower. So this market's been showing some increased potential more recently. I'll be interested to see what happens at this breakdown line. You would generally expect the market to come back a little and consolidate. This market's not been able to be trusted more recently. It's broken down several times in the past when there's been an attempt to support the market. But there's no doubt some increased volumes have gone through. Selling pressure appears to have eased, and the market is actually looking a little more positive. This is the ASX industrial sector. You've got the breakdown line here. Highs of the range. You can see where the market spent some time in consolidation in the background. It pushed higher here and adjacent to this congestion to the left. The highs of that range go through there. There was always going to be some supply drawn out here, and you can see the increased volumes as the market has pushed up, and it's really absorbing the supply from the left here, just below the highs of the range here. Highs of the overall range up there. There should be some supply up here. But the market's doing a pretty good job in here to absorb the supply that's being drawn out. It's holding on strongly right up in the high of this bar's range, and this overall range here, from here to here, is right up high in that range. That's showing you that there is good buying support in the market, and the market's attempting to absorb the supply drawn out from the left, consolidating its position right up high in the range and setting itself up for a push higher if trading conditions allow. This is consumer staples. They effectively broke out last week. This week has seen the market attempting to absorb the supply drawn out from this attempt to break out. It's a bit of an elongated and ugly looking pullback, but the mid-bar close does show that there's still buying support in this market. The market's effectively absorbing the supply that's been drawn out from this attempt to break out. This is a pretty serious attempt to break out. This is a longer term level, and the market really has broken out pretty seriously above that level, or it's attempting to do so. And the market's now attempting to absorb the supply that's drawn out in response to the breakout. And that's why it's such a big, ugly, widespread down bar. The mid-bar close is positive though, on average volume. So the market's doing a pretty good job there, considering. This is the consumer discretionary sector, and it's pretty much pushed up to the breakdown line above. Here's the breakdown line above through there. You can see where the market built some strength up back here. It really accelerated out of that period of consolidation and potential accumulation back here. Here's where it broke out. 1 week of absorption, a push up to the important level. It's come back and settled right at that level this week. This is the market attempting to absorb the supply drawn out in response to the challenge to the breakdown line and the level above. There's the level above there. There's always going to be some increased supply drawn out there. The market's attempting to absorb that supply or buy that supply right now, and doing a pretty good job of it. This is the ASX property sector. It pulled back somewhat this week. Here's the breakdown line in the background. Breakdown line above that. Breakdown line above that. You can see how the market has consolidated sideways here, pushed up into the level above, where there's expected to be supply drawn out from the left here. There's been a fairly good attempt to absorb supply in there. The market's just pulled back this week, effectively testing the lows of that range, the previous breakdown line. Perhaps with a wider spread than you might see normally. So that's a little bit of a concern. But it did close back at the important level, showing you there was some defence of the lows there. Sufficient buying support emerged to hold the market at the important level. It didn't just blow through. So we'll see how that responds again next week. It was a little disappointing the market pulled back with such a wide spread, but there has been an attempt to support the market at the important level. Just back to the parent index quickly. It's such an ugly chart at the moment. Pretty much trading within the range of this pullback from here to here. But it's not a particularly clear chart at this point in time. I much prefer looking at the mid-cap sector at this point. It's a much more reliable chart to look at this point. Here's the breakdown line. Here's the highs of the range. Buying support came in down here, a push up to the important level, a period of consolidation in response, and now an attempt to challenge the level to the left here, or at least the preparations are being put in place to do so. That's far cleaner. And it looks like the market will make an attempt to push higher when trading conditions are favourable. Okay, thanks for your time. Now, I probably won't be back next week. I'm going to be interstate next week, and perhaps again a few weeks after that. So at this point in time, there won't be any weekly charts next week, but I should be back the week after. Thank you. See ya.